Good morning, guys. The last class we saw about multiprocessor system interconnects. So we saw different types of the system interconnects, how they were arranged, and also we briefly saw about cache coherence. Okay, so we just had an introduction session to cache coherence. So we will see that in detail today. So first of all, we actually saw all these things. So I'll just skim through. So what we saw earlier is the cache coherence problem. So why do we have cache coherence? It's simply because we have multiple processors and each processor will have its own local cache and there will be a shared memory. So that is generally the model, right? It's something like this. So we have uh, processor P1 having its own cache, P2 having its own cache, and then there is a shared memory. Now, if P1 modifies its cache, let's say location X, right? Then we have to have some mechanism so that all the other cache copies are also concurrent, like they're all like coherent, right? So to maintain that, we need cache coherence mechanism. But where is the inconsistency coming? So there are two models in this that we need to think of. Okay, so there are two ways to implement these cache. One is the write through caches, and the other one is write back caches. In write through cache, the idea is when P1 writes something to its location in a local cache X, then immediately it will be reflected into the main memory. Okay, not only main memory, all the way up. Like there could be any number of intermediate caches that are there, but for simplicity, we just have a local cache and a common like a shared memory. So in write through cache, when P1 writes to its location, then in the memory will also get updated. So this also will become X dash now. Okay, immediately. The other way of doing it is instead of, like every time updating the same location over and over, you will only write to the particular memory when the block is being replaced. Okay, so this is more prevalent in the uniprocessor systems where you have one processor and a local cache. So when you're writing some block to the cache, you don't have to keep writing it to memory, correct? So what you will do is only you will keep using the cache. That defeats the purpose of cache when you actually every time you have to replace it. I mean, you have to update it in the memory. It's something like you bring a book from the library to your bookshelf, and then anytime you update, you also have to go to library to tell them like what you have done, right? Every time you have to go to library and then you say, hey, I updated this in my book. I mean, we don't do that for libraries, but I'm just giving you an analogy, right? So but defeats the purpose. So for uniprocessor system, write back is more prevalent. Okay, so you will only write it back when your block is being replaced. In other words, you say, oh, my book is due, so I have to replace it, so I have to go to library and replace it for good, right? So that is when you will go right back to the memory. However, in write through cache, that is not the case, right? So you actually write all the way through. Every time you do an update, you actually go and update in the memory also. Okay, so so in multiprocessor systems, as I mentioned, write through caches are prevalent because you actually have to have a consistent memory. Okay, so we saw the different types of inconsistency. So one is shared memory, the other one is process migration, and the third one is IO operations. Okay. Now this brings us to a point where we have to come up with some kind of a protocol where the cache copies are all consistent, or there is a way that inconsistency can be avoided, right? So we use something called as a Snoopy protocol. Okay, Snoopy bus protocol. So again, we assume a bus. Why? Because mostly we will have bus at the cache and memory level, right? So they communicate through bus. So first we will see a write invalidate protocol with write through caches. Okay, so there are two ways again inside this as well, like a Snoopy protocol. So the first one is a write invalidate protocol. Okay, and then there is a another protocol, write update protocol. Okay, so I'll just give you a brief. Yeah, actually, we will go through that in a bit. Do we? Yeah, we are going to go through it. Okay, so we are going to see write invalidate protocol with write through cache. Okay, so what is write invalidate protocol? When I say a write invalidate protocol, it means that uh, whenever there is going to be a modification in my cache block, what I will do is I will make sure all the others cache are all invalidated. I will just send a message saying I am updating this cache, and the cache controller is going to snoop. So they're going to snoop the memory, I mean snoop the bus, and they're going to broadcast a message to all cache in residing in all the other processors saying, hey, this guy has written this particular block, so you invalidate. Okay, so the copy will be invalidated across all caches as if this has actually this is not valid anymore, right? Because it has been updated by someone else. And then there is something called as a write update protocol. In write update protocol, what you do is again you have to snoop, but this time instead of sending just a message saying, hey, I have modified, you will also send the data. You will broadcast the data in the bus. Okay, and all the cache controllers in the residing in the local caches, right? So they are all going to snoop into the bus and say, hey, he has written, somebody has written this data, and this is the data, and I will take it. Okay, so that's the difference between write invalidate and write update. In both cases you are going to snoop, but in invalidate you're only going to send a message saying, hey, I am invalidating all your cache because I have written. Okay, so one guy has written and sent a message, I have written, so all others will invalidate, but they don't have the data, updated data. In write update, I will also send the data. I will say, hey, I have written and this is the data for your information, and I will broadcast this. And everyone will snoop and then say, hey, this is the updated data. Thank you. Right? So now there are two states here. So if in a write invalidate protocol with write through caches, so there's a valid state and then invalid state. Okay, and so we need to come get familiarized with some of these terms here. First one is read by the same processor. Okay, if I am going to read, okay, and I is the processor, so I is my name. Okay, so I'm going to read from my own local cache. The second one is I am going to write into my own cache, and the third one is, so I'm going to so I'm getting replaced, or I am getting invalidated by someone else. Okay, somebody has told me I am invalid. Okay, so so that's your Z. Okay, R, W, and Z. Similarly, you have the same thing for a different processor. So here you're going, so somebody else is going to read the copy that you have. Okay, so here you have to assume that, let us take a particular memory location X, and that memory location is there with me, I, and also with one of my other processors, right? Neighboring processor J. Okay, so I and J both have a copy of X. Okay, and if someone is reading X, which I also have, then it is represented by R of J. Okay, and when somebody is writing into that location X, then I call it W of J, someone else, not me. If I write, I represent it by W of I. Okay. And similarly, now invalidated by different processor. Okay, replaced by a different processor. Okay. Hey, actually, here there is a small correction. Okay. So Z of I means that I am invalidating. Okay, I am invalidating all other processors cache, so I am sending the invalidate message. Okay. And Z of J means somebody else is sending that message. Okay, so have that thing here. So there is a correction here. Okay. To give you an example, so let's take this scenario. So I told, right, so X is the memory copy. So this is a shared memory. Through a bus, you can actually access this memory location. Now P1, P2, or up to Pn, everyone now has a copy of X. So this is the situation. Now P1 writes to X, okay, and modifies X, it has become X dash. Okay. So now we are assuming a write through cache. Okay. If it's a write through cache, what it means? It means that I am going to write as soon as I write to my location X here. So I modify this data. I also update my memory. Okay. So that is my write through cache. In a write through cache, as soon as P1 writes X to X dash, memory will also get modified. Okay, so it will immediately, you will see the uh, modification in your memory. So that's your write through cache. In a write through cache, we are now seeing what is a write invalidate protocol. Here, as soon as P1 has modified X dash, okay, memory is consistent, okay, because it's a write through cache. Now, in an invalidate protocol, you will also send an invalidate broadcast to your bus, and everyone else will be snooping, and everyone will mark as invalid. They'll mark invalid. Okay, so whatever they had as X, they will say that X is not valid anymore. Okay, it is invalid. Everyone, whatever copy they have is obsolete now. Clear, everyone? So this is your write invalidate protocol. In write update protocol, as soon as you write P1 writes X dash, your memory will be updated because it's a write through cache. However, on top of that, you will also send or broadcast X dash into the bus, and everyone will get a copy. Okay. So now a quick question: which is better, a write invalidate or a write update? You might think that write update is a lot better because of course you're broadcasting the message, everyone gets a copy and everyone is consistent immediately, right? As soon as X dash X gets modified to X dash, everyone gets a copy. Okay, this is good, but it comes at a cost. Okay, so broadcasting data is actually very expensive. Okay, so sending just an invalid message is okay. Okay, it's just one bit, right? I just have to send invalid, that's all. But here I have to send the actual data also, so my bandwidth, the bus bandwidth will be consumed, right? So it really depends on the implementation. It's not like one is always better than the other, but it really depends on your application and your workload that is put in use. So just keep in mind that it's not free of cost. So when you broadcast the data, it comes at a cost, right? So you take the bandwidth. So these are the different states. I will not go through this. It's only for your reference. We will actually see it in a figure at the state diagram so that it becomes easier. So here we are seeing the Snoopy protocol for write through caches. Of course, we are going to assume write through, and then we are going to see write invalidate scheme. So there are two states that we discussed, right? A valid state and an invalid state. Okay. So here, what is happening is, in a valid state, if I am reading the data in my local cache, I don't have a problem. Okay, so if I am reading, I don't have a problem. I will just stay in the same state. Correct. If I am writing to my local cache, then also not a problem. Correct. If I am writing to my local cache, I don't have to worry about anyone. So I can still stay valid. If someone else is reading, if someone else, I have a copy of X in me, with me, but someone else, J is also reading X. I don't have a problem. He can read. Okay. And if J is getting invalidated, someone, because of something, right? We don't know. Because maybe I am writing, J will become invalid, correct? If I am writing to my local cache and J has a copy of it, that guy is going to invalidate himself. But still, I am valid. Okay, so I will still stay valid. Clear? So this is the state diagram. So as for all these scenario, you will stay valid. Now what happens in the other case? So whenever someone else is writing, then you have a problem. Okay, when someone else is writing, then what happens? You will get an invalid. So you got invalidated. So then you have to go to the invalid state. Okay, and you will have to stay in this state as long as someone else is reading, someone else is getting invalidated, someone else is, I mean, you are getting again invalidated, and someone else is writing into the same. So the same thing, right? WIZI, and also like someone else is also reading the location. So you will continue to stay invalid until you have a case to either write or read or write into the same location. Okay, so what happens here? I have a data X and someone has invalidated me. Okay, someone has written into that X and made that X dash. So what I should do, I should not be reading X anymore. X is not valid anymore. So you go to invalid state and you continue to be in the state forever until you actually have a case in your instruction. You have in your program, you have an instruction that says, hey, go read this, or you say, hey, go write into this location. Then you need the updated copy. Only then you will become valid again. You will actually get that updated copy from the memory. Clear? It's actually quite simple. So until then you will have to, because you don't have a case to either read or write, you will continue to stay invalid. Only if you have a case, then in your program you have an instruction that says, hey, go fetch this location, but that location is invalid. Then you will have to go get it from the memory and you will become valid. Clear? Any questions, guys? Okay. So now we are going to see the write invalidate protocol with write back cache. Okay, so we are going to again stick to write invalidate protocol now with write back cache. So here there are three states: read only state, read write state, and invalid state. Okay, on all the definition here are the same. Okay, again let's skip this slide. We will directly jump to the state diagram. Now, what is this? So there are three states, right? So there is a read only state. In this state, so this is equivalent to somewhat you will say the valid state, right? So here, both these states are valid. So this state is also valid and this state is also valid. Both are valid states, and there is one invalid state. This is the only invalid state. So let us assume we'll start with this state, read only state. As long as you're reading, you're okay. As long as your neighbor is reading, you're still okay. And as long as your neighbor got invalidated, you don't care. All these scenarios, you will continue to be in your read only state because you're only reading it. Now the problem comes when you're going to write. Correct? The invalidation, all these issues come only if somebody wants to write. Now, if you are writing, you will still continue to be valid, but you go to a different state. to a read write state. Okay, a little more complex than read only state. Read only state, everyone is reading and everyone stays happy. The moment you are writing, you are creating problem for others. Okay, you are actually invalidating others. Correct? In that state, you would continue to invalidate others by, I mean, you send the invalidate message and then you can continue to write also. Okay, it's not like you have a read write combination here. You can read and you can write. Okay, so this is like the equivalent of that valid state earlier, right? So like that, but here we're just differentiating between read only and read write. Now when again you're only going to read, okay, so you will come back. So when someone, sorry, when someone else is reading, that's interesting, right? When someone else is reading from read write state, it means that they have the valid copy. They have a valid copy, because if you remember, if only if you have a case for reading, you will get the updated copy from your main memory. So you will come back to your read only state. It's again equivalent. So you have come to a more stable state. Okay. Now what happens for you? The problem for you comes when someone else is writing and they will invalidate you. Okay. And you will stay in that invalid state forever until someone, I mean, when you have a case to read. When you have a case to read, then you will come back to your read only case. All right. And similarly, in invalidate state, if you want to write, then you go to read write state. You won't go to read only state, right? But you go to write state. Here we are just differentiating the read only and then read write state. Okay. So so this is the case. So again, in read write state, if someone invalidates, you have to come back here. Okay, similar to in your read only case. So in whichever state, whichever valid state you are in, if someone invalidates you, you come to invalid state. Clear? So this is for your write back cache. And why we have this difference is because in read only scenario, you don't have to worry. Okay, in a write through cache, you always assume that your memory is updated. Okay, so you don't have to have differentiate between read only and read write. But in write back cache, you have to differentiate that, because your memory may not be consistent. Okay, you will only get the updated copy from memory when you have a read. When you are going to read something from the memory, then you will have an updated copy. Clear, everyone? Then there is something called as a write once protocol. Okay, so again, we'll skip this verbose slide. We'll just stick to the state diagram here. And there is a typo in your textbook. So this is the valid. In your textbook, both of these are mentioned as invalid. Please correct that in your textbook. So this is the valid state here. Okay. So in this, there are 4 states: a dirty state, a valid state, an invalid state, and a reserved state. Okay, let's start from your valid state. In a valid state, as long as you're going to read, you will stay in valid. Okay, so that's we are used to that, right? So we know that now. When as long as you're reading, no problem. Now when you're going to write, then what happens? You actually go to a reserved state. Now we need to understand why we have this modification. It's because in your write through caches, every time you are going to write to a cache, you're going to update the memory, and that is going to consume bandwidth. Correct? So to overcome that, and that is what is preferred in a multiprocessor system too, because your memory has to be consistent. But for all practical purposes, it's actually becoming a problem. So what you will you come up with is this write once protocol, where the first time you're going to write, you're going to update it in the memory. Okay, you're going to update just like a write through cache. You're going to update it in the memory, but it's not always write through. It's only write once protocol. The first write you will update in the memory. Subsequent write, you go to a state called dirty. Okay, so the first write you come here. I'm reading, no problem, I'm here. And then first write I come here. You come to the reserved state. After that, nobody else is reading. Okay, then I only write. I am writing it for the second time to my local cache. Then I will not update my memory because it seems like I'm using this data much more frequently and I don't want to consume memory bandwidth. So I will say, hey, okay, all of you guys, it's I'm not going to update this anymore, but I will tell you that my copy is dirty, meaning I am actually working on it. And as long as I'm going to write, I will stay dirty. I will update. Dirty means like the copy that I have is a modified copy and all others must be invalidated. Okay, so that's called a dirty copy. A valid copy is a clean copy. Okay, everyone has the same copy, it's a clean copy. If I have modified, I have made it dirty, right? So you go to the dirty state. Now in this, if in a reserved state, if somebody invalidates me, I go to invalid state, similar to the previous one. Okay, so whenever I get a read invalidate, I'll actually invalidate myself. And then if I actually read, if I get a read, if I have in my program I read, then I go to valid state again. Okay, so this is a bulk block read, block replacement. Okay, so I go to a valid state. So whenever I am going to read, I go to valid state, and somebody invalidates me, I go to invalid state. Okay, all other states remain the same. The only addition here is this reserved state and a modification called as a dirty state. Okay, the first write I will update to memory. I'm being a nice guy. I'm saying, hey, I have modified for for your information. But then I see that in my program every other instruction is like modifying the same location. Then I say, hey, I'll not consume bandwidth. What I'll say is, I have a dirty copy and I'm going to work. This is my working copy. So I keep working. Okay, until like someone is actually needing the data. Okay, so someone else needs the data, then also I'll broadcast, and then we'll all go to the valid state. Okay, so that's a block replacement by others. Clear, everyone? So this is very important. Okay, so it's actually it's like the core of your computer architecture. Okay, it's a very core concept. Okay, time for some question. Ah, whom should we pick? Ashish, are you there?
Yes, sir.
You want to try to answer this? Match the following.
One one is B.
One is
Uh, B. Write to memory exactly once.
nope, not right. Want to get some help?
Yes, sir.
Let's get some help.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, call out.
Sweden.
Hey, Speedle. Hey, Speedle, are you there? Well, Speedle doesn't seem to be hearing us. Ashish, ask for help. Someone else who can help you.
Sir, no Faisal.
No. Hey, guys can hear me, right? Ashish needs help. Guys, please help him out. Ashish, what did you do, man? You pissed off all of them? Nobody's answering. Or did I piss off all of them? No, are you there? Nope. Okay, your third chance. Two strikes. One more chance. Ashish, come on.
Sir, Lavanya.
Lavanya. Lavanya, long time. What man, Ashish? Nobody wants to help you. So sad. Shubham,
Yes, sir.
can you help Ashish?
Yeah. For the right ones, it will be option B,
Right ones is option B. Okay.
and for right back, it will be option C,
Okay.
and
Ah, no, that's
then
wrong.
one will be A.
Right back. No, that's wrong. That's not right. This is not right. If that's not right, then you have only one option, right? So right
Yeah,
back.
right back to A, and then right to C.
Okay, so right back is when your cash block is getting replaced. You will not write always. So right
Mhm.
through is the one where as soon as your cache block is modified, your memory will also be updated.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, clear, Ashish?
Yes.
Thanks, Shubham.
Sir,
Yes.
Guys, please listen to the class. Okay, so this is again, this is one of the fundamentals, right? This is you should have studied this in computer organization. Have you studied this in computer organization, Shubham?
Uh, Not really, sir. But
No.
yeah,
Okay.
we have studied. We didn't study all the variations. We have studied few of them,
Hmm. Okay. All right. So
and we have studied from cache to memory and memory to cache and that.
okay. Not this depth, is it? You haven't studied
No,
this.
sir.
Okay. 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 Then at least you learned something. It's good. Yeah, actually, these things are very important even from programming point of view. Okay, so if you want to be a real good programmer, you should know the architecture. You can actually write programs to break the systems. I can write a program, a simple program, to cause my cache to crash. Your cache will all. If I know the architecture, I will just write a simple program like an like arrays, right? Just reading from arrays. I'll just make sure that every time I read, I will actually I'll create a replacement and I'll cause the system to thrash. Anyway, so coming back, one more question. Swedel, are you still there? Swedel, are you back? Swedel is not there. Shruti, Shruti Singh. Hey,
Yes, sir.
Shruti, you want to try this out?
Okay.
So match all that apply.
Towards
Huh?
right update, it is the option.
Right update is C.
Yes, sir.
Okay. In right update, when local cache is modified, shared memory is updated if write through cache is used. Okay. All right. Then
first one, invalidate option A.
Option A. Okay, write invalidate is this. Okay. All right, good. That's correct. So when local cache is
Yeah.
modified, all other copies in other processors are invalidated. Like invalidate, invalidate. That's all. Match. Right. But this question is a little tricky, right? So I mentioned a match the following. Right? Nobody who gives match the following like this. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I only give. Yeah. So option B. Why is there an option B? Okay, I'll help you. Okay.
Yeah.
So write invalidate is when local cache is modified, you invalidate all others. A write update is when your local cache is modified, all other copies are updated. Update, update. See, matching.
Okay.
Okay. Now on top of that, both in write invalidate and write update, when local cache is modified, you update the memory if it's a write through cache. If it's a
Okay.
write through cache, then it doesn't matter whether it's write invalidate or write update, you will update your memory. Clear? Okay. All right. Thanks, Shruti. Thank you for answering.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Next, we have multi-level cache coherence. Now, with just one level of cache, we had so many things, right? So we are, but I've already told you we don't have single level cache in these days. We have at least 2 to 3 levels of caches. So what will happen during that time? So that's what we are going to have. So the typical example here of the architecture is given. Okay, so each processor will have its own local cache, and then there is a shared cache at the higher level, and on top of that you have your memory. Okay, you have to actually snoop at every level here. Okay, so but here are some points to remember. Uh, so it really depends, like when I mentioned earlier, right? So there's no one particular case where it works. Okay, it all really depends on your workload pattern and the implementation. And so the idea is you have to reduce the traffic. Okay, so your snooping mechanism should not actually involve more traffic. Snooping is only what to say, to make the cache coherent, right? It should not become uh, the the most significant occupant of the bus. Okay, so bus is there to transmit useful data of the program, right? But because of our architecture we shouldn't create more traffic. Okay, so that's the other point. The third one is there's something called as a data pollution. So generally I've mentioned, right? So let us say you have array A. Let us say array A is a very big array, and the moment you access A of, let us say, 7, okay, in your program you're accessing A of 7, then it also means I mentioned two things about cache, right? One is spatial locality and other is temporal locality. In spatial locality, it means that if I'm accessing A of 7, it means that it could mean like I mean it is highly likely that I will be accessing either A of 6 or A of 8 in my next instruction or in the subsequent instruction, right? Similarly, A of 5 and then 9 here. Okay, so if A of 7 is accessed, then it's highly likely I am going to access all my adjacent fellows also, because mostly you access array in for loop or while loop, right? Some loop you actually access these contents of arrays in a loop. Then what you do is, the purpose of cache is that you will, whenever you are going to access A of 7, you will not just bring A of 7 to memory, I mean to cache. You will also bring all these guys. Okay, you will bring all the neighbors, so that you don't have to again get another miss. Next time if I want A of 6, I don't have to again go to memory and fetch A of 6. The moment I am accessing A of 7, I would have already brought A of 6, A of 5, A of 8, A of 9, everyone. Okay, so that anywhere I will have my neighbors here in the cache itself. Okay, which means that bigger my block size. So this is called a block. So you will not bring a single word from memory to cache. You will bring blocks. Okay, or you call it as line also, cache line. You bring cache line, right? Or you bring block. Both are same. So you bring a cache block from your main memory to your cache, right? You bring a block from memory to your cache. So which means that bigger the block size, it's better for you. Okay, you will have a less miss ratio. Okay, initially you just brought A of 7. Then if you wanted A of 6, you will have a miss, correct? So that is why you have increased it. You have increased it to A of 6 and A of 8 now. Now, if you want to access A of 5, then you will have a miss. Correct. So that is why you increase again the block size. You actually have A of 5 and 9 also included. So which means that you are going to bring a bigger block, right? Bigger block is always better. But that is not always the case. At some point, what you will have is you will find that beyond a certain point, your miss rate will start increasing instead of decreasing. If you increase your block size, ideally your miss ratio should decrease, correct? But it will start increasing. Why? Because you bring in A of 7, but then you when somebody is evicting you, let us say someone if someone let us say we are accessing some B of 11 or something, and it so happens that B of 11 is replacing this, then all of these guys are gone back to memory, have gone back to memory. Now I've brought in B, but next time when I want to access A of 5, then I have to bring in all these guys. Everyone is gone. Okay, it's like you have boarded an entire army in one ship and the ship sank. That's all, right? So everyone is gone now. Again, you have to go fetch everything from memory. Okay, so that point is called as a data pollution point, where beyond that, if you increase the block size, then you actually have a problem. Your miss ratio will start increasing. Okay, and another thing is your ping ponging. So ping pong is, I mean, as the name suggests, right? So you actually migrate between two cache. That's all you'll do. There won't be actual data being what to say. Uh, your data being used by the processor. Rather, you will actually have a miss. So you'll try to bring in data for you, and then you try to update it, but then other guy will have a miss. So you keep ping ponging. Okay. So data will just go back and forth between you and your neighbor. Okay. So that is called ping pong. So these are the different issues that you have to keep in mind. Now, one of the major problems with Snoopy protocol is again the uh, so it's a bandwidth, right? So whenever you have a Snoopy protocol, you consume too much bandwidth. You have to send across, because we have assumed that right through cache, you have to keep sending the data across the bus. So is there a way to overcome this? So fortunately there is. So there is something called as directory based protocols, where your memory banks will have a directory in them. Okay, so in that directory, it's similar to library books, right? In library books, you have in library register, you actually know which book who has taken. Correct. So this particular guy has taken this book. So you maintain a directory, correct? So exactly you do the same thing here. Okay. So how is this useful? So we will just see. So there are three ways to do this, and by that you will actually understand why is this useful also. Okay, the first thing is a full map directory, where what you will have is, so you have a directory for as big as the number of processors. So if you have let us say you have n processors, you have n entries here. Okay, and then when you say C means it's clean. Okay, and D means it's dirty. Okay, so what is dirty mean? Dirty mean I have a valid copy, but others cannot use it. Okay, I have my own local copy that I'm using right now. Okay, it's exclusively owned by me, and I am going to write this, and all others cannot use this because it's not shared with them yet. Okay, so in a full map directory, what you do is if you have n processors, you will maintain n entries in your directory. Okay, including this, and finally you have your data. Actual data is here, and this is that location X. Okay, so now, so yeah, this is the location X. So now what happens is that P1 and P2 both needs the data. Oh, sorry, P3 also needs the data. Okay, so what you will do is you will actually point to whoever has the data here. Okay, so you'll actually point, so this guy has taken, so it's exactly like taking the library book. Okay, so you actually make a note that who has the copy of my cache, so that you don't have to broadcast it onto the bus, but you will only send it to those processors that actually need data. In this case you have to broadcast because all of them need the data, but let us say that P3 does not actually need this. Okay, so for now we will just assume if P3, right, so it doesn't need the data, so this arrow mark will not be there. Whenever you have to send data, you can only send to these two guys. Okay, you don't have to broadcast it across. Clear? Now that's the full map directory. Now here in this particular case, your P3, right, so in this example, we'll come back to this example. Now all of them have requested the data, so you give them all a copy, so everyone has a copy of X. But this guy, right, so he started writing. Okay, he wrote into that location. Okay, he modified this data, so data is not data anymore, data is data dash. Okay, so the data you modified, right, so what you will do is you actually only point to this guy and you invalidate all these guys. So all these guys are invalidated by simply removing the link. Okay, so you have previously you were pointing who were all having this data, everyone was having this data, but now you'll say, hey, no, you don't have the data, invalid, invalid, invalid. So there won't be any arrow mark. Okay, so no links here, only this guy has data now. Okay, so now here the memory overhead is n squared. Why? Because the size of the memory is O of n, and again you have to maintain a directory where each of the directory, so this one is n, right, and then this one is again the size of your processor n, so it becomes O of n squared, n times O of n, it becomes O of n squared. So next one, to overcome this, right, so in of course the first scheme is never the best, correct, you always have to optimize it. So here one way of optimizing it is, instead of having like a huge number, I mean like as big as the number of processors, I will just say, hey, I am only going to have an architecture where I will share it with only I processors, not more than that. In this particular example, we are only sharing it with 2. Previously, when you had n processors, all n you will give, hey, you also take, you also take, you also take, but that will only add to overhead. Now you will say, hey, I'll give it to 2 of you, so that we can restrict the directory size, right? So it's, in other words, it's something like saying I will only have 2 copies of a particular textbook in your library, so that my library entry book, right, that will become smaller. Okay, if otherwise I'll have to maintain as many number of books I have to have that many entries in my directory also, correct. So now you will say, hey, no, 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 I will only have 2 entries, only to 2 of you I will share. Now 3, right, 3 being the guy who wants to create a problem, he'll say, hey, I also want to read. Then what you'll do, you'll say, hey, okay, so can you borrow it from 2? Okay, I'll take it from 2. So 2 will not have, but 3 will now have, so 2 is gone. Okay, so there is no connection here. Okay, so at any point only 2 of them can have, so this is called as a limited directory. And here the overhead has come down by log of n log n. Okay, instead of n into n square, it has come to n log n. Why? Because this limited to 2, right? So you can actually represent this in a binary. Okay, simply it's nothing but you can actually represent the entire processor. If you have n processors, you can represent that in binary by log n bits, correct? So you have order of n log n here. And finally, you have something called as a chained directory, where you actually have the advantages of both. Okay, so here you will have a limited directory, but at the same time you will also enable all the caches to have a shared copy. How do you do this? So you just maintain a simple linked list. So the moment first guy asks for data, you will actually point to that guy, and then you will actually have the end of the linked list here. Okay, the chain terminate. Okay, chain terminate thing. So it's something like the null pointer, right? So this is your null pointer of your linked list. Then what you will do is, let's say this guy has P2 is now requesting data. Then what you will do is you will point to P2 and you will say that I know that previously P1 had, right? So I will say, hey, previously P1 had, why don't you refer to him? So I will just point to him. Something like saying I will have one copy of my textbook, and the first person to get, I will actually give it to him, and I'll say, hey, you are responsible for this book. And anyone else coming and asking, hey, can I get this textbook? I say, hey, this person, right? Person, let's call him A. So this person A, I have given the textbook to him, so you go refer to him. Okay, but to me, you are my only, the A is my only contact. Okay, now anytime someone else is coming, I'll make it, I'll note, I'll have a chain. Okay, so I'll just go, now B is coming and asking, I say, hey, B, go and ask A. If C is coming and asking, I say, hey, maybe B is having it because B was the last one who requested, you go ask B. Okay, if C is asking, I'll say B. So you'll actually continue to maintain a linked list here. Okay, all right, so that's about this. So quick quiz again. So what's a full map directory? Let's pick. Sugyan, can you please answer? Sugyan, not able to hear you. You can type. Full map is C. Correct. Chained is A. Huh, perfect. Then limited directory is B then. Right? So in full map, yeah, great. Thanks, Sugyan. So in full map directory, so the size of the directory is proportional to the number of processors. In a limited directory, it's restricted. In chain directory, you maintain a linked list. That's all. Okay, so just one more topic. I just want to quickly go over this. Okay, so there are some atomic operations, uh, and also there's a wired barrier synchronization. Okay, synchronization is actually very important. You have to understand that parallel program works like this, right? So you have a starting point, and then you have to fork. Okay, so you will fork, you will do individual operations, and then you will again join. Okay, and then you will fork, you'll do individual operations, and then you will join. So this is exactly how your, I mean, any combinations of this also, right? So this is how a parallel program will always work. And this point is called as a synchronization point, and this is very, very important. You need to make sure that data at this point is consistent. Otherwise, if you execute this portion of the program without synchronization, you will end up in trouble. Okay, so memory may not be consistent. So To accomplish this, there are a couple of mechanisms. First is test set and lock. So I think you have studied this in your operating system. It's a simple lock. Okay, so I will just check if my lock is 0. Okay, if my lock as long as my lock is set, right? So what I'll do, so I will have to continue to set the lock and then return whatever value I had as lock. Okay, so if lock is 1, which is locked, like someone else is using it, then what I will do is I will make lock equals to 1 and then I will return 1. Okay, so which means lock is continuously being set. But at some point somebody is going to say reset lock. Okay, so somebody has reset the lock, then what I'll do is I'll have this as 0, correct? Then what I'll do, I will actually make temp as 0. Okay, I will return 0, but I will make the lock 1. Okay, I will make the lock 1, but I will return 0. So the moment test and set returns 0, it means that that particular processor who executed test and set obtained the lock, but he would continue to set the lock. Okay, so lock will always be set, which means that lock will always be in someone's possession. Okay, so and this is an atomic operation. Okay, all these 3 instructions, right? They have to happen in an atomic way. The other mechanism is a hardware mechanism. It's called as a wired barrier synchronization. Okay, so where you have a NOR logic, NOR gate logic. Okay, so here what will happen is, so don't worry too much about this figure. There's no electronics about this, so it's a simple NOR operation. What you will do is all your x, right? So x is the condition. So all your x should be equal to 0. Okay, for your NOR gate to output 1. Correct. So if not, then you will not actually progress further. Okay, so even if some of them are 1 and some of them are 0, you will still not progress. So only in this case, process 1 and process 3 have reached a synchronization point. Okay, others have not. So when you reach a synchronization point, you make your x as 0. Okay, at some point what will happen, everyone will reach synchronization point, then your NOR output will become 1. Okay, when your NOR output becomes 1, you will give a go. Okay, that's your y you will give a go and you will continue. Okay, so that's the wired barrier synchronization. Clear? So with this we'll stop. Thank you guys. So are there any questions? So if there are no questions, then we'll stop here. Okay, you can give your attendance and leave. Thank you.